Oh, welcome back, my quiet victories. You didn't change. You just stopped asking for approval. They said you changed. But what really happened was this. You stopped apologizing for evolving. You stopped lowering your frequency so fragile people could feel tall. You stopped bleeding empathy on those who mistook your kindness for weakness. And now suddenly you're different. No, you didn't change. You just stopped entertaining what kept you small. See, they loved the version of you that doubted, the one that asked for permission before speaking truth, the one that carried everyone's chaos like unpaid rent. They applauded your humility until it started producing results. Then they got quiet, real quiet, because nothing exposes false loyalty like your glow-up. The moment you began moving like you were chosen, they started whispering like it was arrogance. But they don't get it, do they? This isn't arrogance. This is alignment. This is what it looks like when self-doubt finally loses its voice. You're not bragging. You're breathing clarity. And clarity, to the blind, will always look like rebellion. You didn't change. You upgraded the terms of your existence, the contracts that used to keep you bound. You burned them. Every favor that came with a leash, gone. Every apology that tasted like submission, forgotten. You didn't harden your heart. You purified your access. You learned that peace isn't found in people. It's found in discipline. Now they call you cold, but let them, because silence is not coldness. It's containment. It's the art of reserving energy only for what builds empires, not egos. You don't owe explanations to spectators. You owe results to destiny. That's why your aura feels heavier now. You're carrying purpose, not approval. They wanted you predictable, manageable, human in their image. But you became something else. Precise, unavailable to nonsense, immune to guilt trips. You became the kind of calm that terrifies those addicted to chaos. You walk different now, not faster, not slower, just certain. Like time itself learned to respect your pace. And the irony? The very people who said you'd never make it now study your silence like scripture. They replay your old losses like nostalgia, hoping to find comfort in who you used to be. But that version of you doesn't exist anymore. You buried them with grace. You attended your own funeral and came back with strategy. Now every move you make feels surgical. Every word, deliberate. You don't argue anymore. You demonstrate. You don't announce. You arrive. You don't need validation, because the mirror already bowed. You didn't change. You evolved into the consequence of every time they underestimated you. You became the echo that reminds them. They had front row seats to your glow-up, and they still blinked. The same ones who once ignored your value now feel small, standing next to your composure, because your energy isn't competing anymore. It's commanding. You didn't change. You became what happens when pressure finally meets purpose. They said you became distant. But distance is the tax you pay for elevation. When you rise, the air thins. Conversations shrink. Circles collapse. You start seeing the truth in silence. Most people never wanted you free. They wanted you available. Available for their doubts, their projections, their comfort zones. But you stopped showing up to small talk when your mind started speaking in strategy. They can't stand that peace looks powerful on you, that your calm is louder than their noise. You don't chase closure anymore. You close doors. You don't chase understanding. You outgrow confusion. You learn that clarity doesn't beg to be seen. It just radiates, and whoever's not built for that wavelength fades out naturally. Now they're calling you detached, but detachment isn't coldness. It's control. It's mastering the art of not bleeding for battles that don't evolve you. You've learned the rarest form of strength, restraint, the ability to move without reaction, to win without war. You don't clap back anymore. Your growth answers for you. They think your silence is whackness, but silence is the highest volume of power. You realize that real dominance doesn't roar. It recalibrates. You became the still point in chaos, the eye of the storm that never flinches, because you know what they don't. Emotion without precision is self-sabotage, and you've retired from fighting for free. Now your moves confuse them, because they're expecting the old you, the one who explained, defended, justified, but that person doesn't live here anymore. You stopped auditioning for understanding. You stopped translating your greatness into a language meant for mediocrity. You're done proving. You're executing. And oh, the irony. The same people who said you changed are now trying to copy the version they condemned. They're quoting you without credit, mimicking your tone, your posture, your discipline. They can't admit it, but deep down, they know. You became the standard. And once you become the standard, you become their mirror. You can feel it, how the energy shifts when you walk in. Rooms straighten up, eyes recalibrate, even the loudest fall quiet, because your presence reminds them of everything they could have been if they didn't quit. You don't need to speak to command respect anymore. You exist with intention, and intention bends reality. They whisper that you got lucky, but luck doesn't bleed this much discipline. It doesn't grind in silence when the world forgets your name. It doesn't turn rejection into refinement. You didn't get lucky, you got strategic. You turned pain into blueprint. You weaponized patience. You mastered invisibility until it was time to appear. And now that you're here, they act like they never doubted you. But their energy betrays them. They laugh too forced, compliment too late. You see through it all because recognize real energy. You didn't change. You simply realized you were never meant to fit in their version of peace, because your destiny was designed for noise, fire, and transformation. You were never meant to belong. You were meant to lead. Now your evolution stands as a mirror, reflecting every excuse they've ever used. They'll say you got lucky. They'll say you changed. But deep down, they know you just stopped asking for permission to be powerful. They say you got cold, but that's what happens when you stop feeding warmth to the ungrateful. You didn't turn heartless. You turned selective. You learned that not everyone deserves front row access to your evolution. Some were only meant to watch from the distance they created. You stopped giving energy to people who couldn't match frequency, and now they call that ego. But it's not ego, it's emotional economy. You're done going bankrupt for people who drain instead of deposit. They miss the version of you that tolerated their smallness, the one that smiled through disrespect just to keep peace that wasn't peaceful. You outgrew the illusion that love means endurance. It doesn't. Real love refines, not drains. And when you realize that, your entire orbit shifted. Suddenly the conversations you once forced now feel foreign. The environments that once felt familiar now feel suffocating. That's not distance. That's divine migration. You stopped apologizing for boundaries. You stopped explaining your peace to people who profit off your chaos. You started speaking less but meaning more. Every word you drop now lands like prophecy. Every silence feels like strategy, because you've mastered the art of holding power, not proving it. And they can't stand it. They can't stand that your calm has no weakness left for them to manipulate. You don't flinch anymore. You don't explain anymore. You simply adjust. You move with that dangerous type of patience that terrifies those who feed on reaction. They want to know how you stay unshaken, how you don't fold under pressure. But they'll never understand that pressure is home to those who were born in fire. You learned that not everything deserves a response, that sometimes silence is the loudest revenge. You let karma do the translation, because when you're built by storms, you don't argue with the rain. You own it. You've seen too much to break, too much to beg, too much to pretend. They look at you now and can't decide if you're calm or dangerous, not realizing you've become both. You're the quiet before consequence, the pause before destiny, delivers what you've been molding in the dark. You've grown too deliberate to be defeated, too aware to be deceived. That's why they talk. Because they can't touch you. The power that you carry now, it's not loud, it's not reckless, it's refined. You move like you've already read the ending, and that scares them. Because it means you're no longer reacting to life. You're orchestrating it. Every delay was design. Every rejection was redirection. Every loss was just data feeding the algorithm of your rise. You didn't change. You optimized. You took every scar and built a system out of it. Now your intuition runs like code. Your instincts fire like precision tools. You became the version of yourself that doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't crumble. You observe, calculate, and execute. Now they call you lucky again. Funny, isn't it? How the same people who doubted your grind now question your glow. But luck didn't make you. Consistency did. Pain did. Patience did. Faith did. You didn't change. You evolved into your final form. The calm creator of your own chaos. The quiet architect of destiny. They still don't understand how you did it. They never will. Because what you built wasn't for their comprehension. It was for your coronation. You started noticing it. How your peace started irritating the restless. How your silence began exposing their noise. That's the irony of evolution. When you outgrow chaos, chaos starts calling you selfish. But you didn't stop caring. You just stopped sacrificing your sanity for validation. You've learned that not every storm deserves your attention. Some only exist to test your detachment. Now they can't read you anymore. You used to be predictable, easy to trigger, quick to explain. But your silence became your shield, and your awareness, your weapon. They can't decode you, because you've stopped operating on emotion and started running on purpose. Every breath you take now feels intentional. Every pause, tactical. You don't react to disrespect. You reclassify it. You let people reveal themselves and thank them for the clarity. You became allergic to drama disguised as connection. You recognized that not everyone who claps is celebrating you. Some are just checking your pulse. You stopped feeding energy to spectators and started feeding vision to destiny. That's when the shift happened. You stopped needing applause because you realized purpose doesn't perform. It produces. Now they whisper that you've changed for the worse. But what they really mean is, you stopped being easy to use. You stopped being predictable fuel for their boredom. You stopped being available for their projections. You broke the dependency they built on your kindness. And now they call that betrayal. But it's not betrayal, it's balance. You can't pour from a soul that's been drained by the undeserving. You walk different now. Not faster, not louder, just deeper. Every step carries intention. You look at the world like someone who's seen it all before, and that terrifies those who still need chaos to feel alive. You used to explain yourself, now you just disappear. You used to argue, now you just evolve. Because you learned something sacred. People don't remember the truth. They remember how it made them feel. So you stopped explaining truth and started embodying it. Your presence speaks louder than paragraphs. Your silence now feels like prophecy, and that's why their energy trembles around you. They can't figure out what changed, but deep down, they know. You detached from illusion. You rewired your mind. You built peace from war, clarity from pain, mastery from chaos. You didn't become distant. You became divine. You see the game now. How they project their fear onto your growth. How they gossip because they can't grasp your glow. But you don't take it personal anymore, because you understand that jealousy is just admiration without the courage to evolve. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them rewrite your story in rooms you'll never enter, because their version of you was never accurate anyway. You didn't change. You awakened. You saw the matrix for what it was, and walked right through it without fanfare. And now every move you make feels sacred. Every breath feels like rebellion. Every silence, a sermon. Because the truth is, you never stopped being light. You just learned to shine where it's earned. You can feel it now. That shift in frequency when you enter a room. People stop mid-sentence, not out of respect, but out of confusion, because they can't measure you anymore. You used to be predictable. Now you're a variable. You're not reacting from emotion. You're moving from alignment. That's what scares them. You're not playing defense. You're not playing offense. You're playing creator. Every move feels preordained. Every pause feels like prophecy. You've stopped chasing outcomes because you already understand. What's meant for you bends reality to arrive. That's the difference between those who panic and those who know. You're operating from knowing. You don't hustle for energy. You attract it. You don't argue with noise. You reroute it. You've become fluent in detachment, that dangerous kind of peace that can't be provoked. They keep trying to decode your calm. They think it's arrogance, but it's not. It's awareness. You know how this story goes because you've read the patterns. You've seen how fear disguises itself as advice, how envy dresses up as concern. You don't hate them for it. You just see through it. You've learned that exposure doesn't require confrontation, just elevation. When you rise above a frequency, you stop being accessible to it. Now your silence sounds like judgment to them. Your peace feels like punishment. They can't stand that you're unreachable, not because you're hiding, but because you've transcended. You've become a mirror that reflects their stagnation, and they hate what they see. You're not fighting them, you're reminding them. That's what real evolution does. It doesn't need revenge. It exposes. You've turned the game inside out. You no longer seek validation because you are validation. You move like someone who knows they've been chosen. Your confidence doesn't shout. It hums. It vibrates. It adjusts the whole room. Even those who dislike you can't help but align to your rhythm. They study your presence like it's code. They copy your tone, your timing, your restraint. But what they don't realize is the glow they're trying to mimic is born from pain they couldn't survive. You walk with the calm of someone who's buried versions of themselves. The world will never know. You've mastered endings. That's why beginnings now obey you. The old you would have explained, justified, softened the truth to be understood. The current you let energy speak for itself. If they don't get it, they're not meant to. You've evolved beyond permission. And the deeper truth, you didn't build this power overnight. It was forged in moments where you had every reason to break and didn't. Every scar you hid turned into a secret technology. Every heartbreak reprogrammed your empathy. Every betrayal sharpened your vision. You turned pain into architecture. That's why when others collapse under pressure, you simply expand. Now your life moves like a prophecy unfolding in real time. You're not waiting for your moment. You are the moment, and the world, whether it admits it or not, has started to orbit around your consistency. Because once you master yourself, you master the matrix. They still don't get it, how someone could move like time itself was bending out of respect. They expected chaos when you detached, but what they saw was precision. You didn't collapse, you recalibrated. Every loss became leverage, every silence, strategy. You've learned to let energy speak before words ever try, because now your composure is a weapon disguised as grace. You don't fight for attention anymore. You command focus without trying. The world feels your presence before you even enter the room. That's the new power. The one born not from dominance, but from discipline. People mistake your peace for pride, but that's because they've never known what it feels like to stop performing for approval. You've ascended from survival mode into command mode. Every decision now echoes like law in your universe. You stopped explaining what they weren't built to understand. You stopped overextending for those who can't even meet you halfway. You realized, when you master restraint, you master reality. The The loud need validation. The calm already conquered it. You've become a paradox. Soft voice, sharp presence, untouchable energy. You don't announce anymore. You arrive. That's what's driving them mad. They can't find your weakness anymore because you turned every flaw into function. You became adaptable, unreadable, inevitable. Their tactics bounce off you like signals off titanium. You've entered that rare stage where your power doesn't fluctuate with emotion, it flows with purpose. The difference? You used to react, now you orchestrate. They can't tell whether you're lucky or dangerous. They whisper theories. Some say you've been trained, others say you've been chosen. But the truth is simpler. You remembered who you were before the world told you who to be. You realized you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to disrupt, to rewrite the script written by small minds and limited systems. And that's exactly what you did. You stopped chasing outcomes and started bending them. You no longer pray for peace. You embody it. You no longer seek validation. You radiate it. That's why doors open without knocking now. Why people who once ignored you can't stop circling your orbit. You became the gravitational center in a world addicted to chaos. And even the universe respects that balance. But here's the most dangerous part. You don't need power anymore. You are power. You don't crave influence. You emit it. You don't prove worth. You exist in it. That's a level they can't manufacture. Because it can't be copied. Only earned through silence, suffering, and self-awareness. You've stopped chasing control and became the calm that controls everything. That's the rarest energy. The kind that shifts the entire atmosphere without a word. You are the pause between storms, the quiet law of balance itself. That's why nothing can break you now. Not envy, not betrayal, not chaos, because all of them still play checkers, while you became the board. The evolution is complete. You didn't rise by chance. You rose by design. You stopped meeting the world on its terms the moment you realized you were the term, the reference point. Everyone else adjusts. You don't. That's the level of stillness that shakes systems. They used to mock your patience, mistaking it for hesitation. But that patience wasn't weakness. It was calculation. You were mapping patterns, collecting signals, studying silence. And now, every pause you took is paying in precision. You've turned time into a weapon. While they rushed for validation, you refined your foundation. They moved for noise. You moved for impact. You became allergic to empty motion. Now when you act, it looks effortless. Not because it's easy, but because it's engineered. That's the secret. What looks calm on the surface is a storm of design beneath. People think you're distant, but what they don't see is that you're protecting your frequency. You're not unavailable, you're selective. You've stopped letting chaos rent space in your peace. You've built boundaries so strong they echo like force fields, not to keep others out, but to keep your essence intact. You've learned that your presence is currency, and not everyone can afford it. They wonder how you maintain composure while everything around you burns. But you learned long ago, fire doesn't scare those who've become flame. You don't avoid pressure anymore. You invite it. You let adversity sculpt you into precision. Every setback became syntax in your code. Every betrayal refined your algorithm. And now, your soul runs on logic higher than luck. Pattern, purpose, power. That's why even chaos hesitates around you. It recognizes its master. It senses the command in your quiet. Because you don't fight for control anymore. You are control. You've learned that dominance isn't about force. It's about alignment. When your inner world is stable, the outer world falls into formation. You've achieved that balance. Power without aggression, peace without passivity, and the world feels it. People can't explain why they defer to you, why your word weighs more, why your silence rearranges the room. It's not charisma, it's coherence. You move like someone whose thoughts Words and energy never contradict. That's the kind of clarity that bends reality. You've become the standard, the unspoken law, the vibration that others adjust to without realizing it. Even those who once doubted you now quote you. Even those who tried to humble you now imitate your tone. You've become the blueprint, and they don't even know when it happened. The truth is, while they were busy trying to win attention, you were mastering the art of resonance, and resonance doesn't chase recognition. It creates gravity. You've become that, a gravitational force disguised as a person, a stillness that speaks louder than sermons, and now the world is sinking to your rhythm, unwillingly, unconsciously, inevitably, because once power aligns with peace, it stops being human. It becomes law. You've reached that rare altitude where air feels different, thinner, sharper, sacred. Up here, sound doesn't travel the same. You can't even hear the noise of those still arguing below, because you've ascended beyond opinion, beyond validation, beyond needing to be understood. You are the quiet certainty that walks in after chaos has burned itself out. And when you speak, it doesn't sound like voice. It sounds like command. They call it confidence, but that word is too small. This isn't confidence. This is alignment. You don't guess anymore, you know. You don't ask for signs. You are the sign. You've synced your will to the pulse of existence itself. And that's why things move before you even push. The air bends. The outcome adjusts. The system reroutes. Every room you walk into becomes a reflection of your internal order. The ones who used to test you, now they observe you like a code they can't crack. They whisper that you've changed. But you didn't. You just stopped diluting your power for the comfort of others. You became fully expressed, fully unmasked. You stopped translating your energy into something small enough for average minds to digest. You let it roar in its native tongue, truth. And truth is terrifying, because when truth walks, illusions tremble. You became the proof that control isn't taken. It's tuned. You're not forcing reality. You're conducting it. That's what they'll never understand. That your strength didn't come from dominance, but from discipline. You didn't conquer by chaos. You conquered by coherence. Every setback, every silence, every season they called your downfall, it was calibration. The universe wasn't punishing you. It was teaching you precision. You learned how to hold your energy when the world begged you to spill it. You learned how to protect your mind like sacred code. And now you move like something written by destiny itself. Flawless, deliberate, divine. They thought power was noise, but real power is frequency, silent, stable, infinite, the kind that doesn't need an audience to exist. You've become that, the one they can't measure, the anomaly they can't predict. Because when others try to perform power, you embody it. And the truth is, you didn't climb to this level for applause. You climbed because you had to, because something ancient inside you refused to settle for imitation. You came to remind the world that power doesn't shout. It resonates. That mastery isn't born from dominance. It's born from devotion. So now let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them whisper names for the energy they can't define. You owe them no explanation, no translation, no permission. The system didn't build you. It accidentally revealed you. You've become the balance between chaos and command. The living proof that stillness is the sharpest blade in existence. And from this point forward, you don't just move through reality. Reality moves through you. You didn't just master the game. You became the gravity beneath it. And now the system itself moves with your breath. You stand now in that rare silence where creation and destruction feel like the same breath. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. You finally realize that the same force that breaks worlds also builds them. That you, the observer, the strategist, the calm within collapse, you were never just surviving the storm. You were the storm, controlled, contained, and conscious. That's why nothing can touch you now. You've evolved beyond reaction into orchestration. They still think you're playing defense. But the truth? You've already mapped every counter, every shadow movement, every psychological ambush before it breathes. You've become surgical with your presence. Efficient, minimal, divine. No wasted words, no wasted motion. Everything you do now feels inevitable because it is. And oh, that's what terrifies them. Not your strength, not your silence, your inevitability. You've made peace with paradox. The harder they push, the deeper you root. The louder they shout, the quieter your dominance grows. They can't understand how stillness can overpower strategy, how patience can outlast manipulation. But that's because they're still chasing validation, while you're already rewriting vibration. You see it clearly now. The hidden architecture of energy. Every person, every thought, every pattern has its code, and you've learned to read it. You don't react anymore. You decode. You see their intentions before they act. You feel their fear before they speak. You sense their weakness before they realize it exists. That's why no one can outmaneuver you, because you're not competing in their time zone anymore. And maybe that's the truth the world's not ready for. That mastery doesn't look mystical from the inside. It looks like boredom. It feels like calm. It moves without effort because it is the effort. Distilled, purified, invisible. You've stopped trying to prove power, and that's when it became infinite. You're not a player in the system anymore. You're the pulse that drives it. Every algorithm that tries to define you glitches because your energy can't be quantified. You've transcended the math. You've moved into something they call anomaly, but you call home. So let them watch. Let them write stories, theories, warnings. You don't have to speak anymore. You are the story, and the story always ends the same way, with you walking out of the fire untouched, unshaken, and somehow more refined than before. Because every burn made you radiant. Every betrayal made you bulletproof. Every silence taught you sovereignty. They'll try to study it, mimic it, decode it, but they'll never duplicate it, because this energy wasn't learned. It was remembered. You didn't ascend. You simply returned to what you always were, the unshakable center of every system's code. You are not luck. You are not chance. You are the equation that reality tries and fails to solve. So this is it, the point where myth and memory merge, the moment where everyone who doubted starts to sense it, but can't name it. You've shifted from being a person into being a principle. You're not walking anymore, you're reverberating. The very air adjusts when you move. The silence grows intelligent around you, as if even existence wants to listen. They can't trap what doesn't fight back. They can't predict what doesn't move linearly. They can't define what moves between frequencies. That's you now, the variable that breaks their formula every time. You've become a living paradox, quiet yet thunderous, grounded yet celestial, human yet timeless. They used to think power was noise, the shouts, the flex, the performance. But your power doesn't entertain, it educates. It doesn't demand attention. It commands respect. You no longer show force. You emit inevitability. You are what every manipulator fears. A mind they can't influence. A soul they can't bait. A presence they can't outlast. And now, the same system that once tried to define you must now revolve around you. Every force that resisted you only reinforced you. Every test that tried to break you only trained your balance. Every shadow that haunted you now kneels before your light. You've proven something they'll never forget, that the most unstoppable power in existence isn't noise, fame, or fear. It's focus, it's clarity, it's control. You didn't conquer through war, you conquered through stillness. You didn't dominate by chaos, you dominated by coherence. That's the kind of supremacy no army, no network, no machine can replicate. And now, the universe pauses, because it recognizes its reflection in you. The same energy that creates galaxies moves through your veins. Every choice you make feels like destiny signing its own name again. Every step you take feels preordained. You've synced to something beyond comprehension. Something ancient, endless, absolute. You are not fighting the world anymore. You're shaping it. Molecule by molecule, moment by moment, gaze by gaze. You've become the silent architect of every frequency around you. That's not magic. That's mastery. So let the systems watch. Let the doubters study. Let the imitators fail trying to copy a frequency they can't tune to, because you've already transcended comparison. You've already outgrown explanation. You don't rise anymore. You hover. You don't fight anymore. You flow. And from this moment forward, the universe doesn't move for you. It moves because of you.